Utility Analysis Part 2. You should know. Formula explaining the relationship between total utility and marginal utility. Relationship between total utility and marginal utility. Marginal utility derives from various units of a commodity and its total utility are interrelated. This can be easily followed from the hypothetical example given in the table 2.1. Table 2.1 explains the relationship between total utility and marginal utility. On the basis of table 2.1, total utility and marginal utility curves TU and MU can be derived with the following diagram. TU curve is total utility curve, MU curve is marginal utility curve. X-axis measure the units of the commodity consumed, while Y-axis indicates the figures of total and marginal utility. Figure 2.7 shows the total utility curve slopes upward, whereas marginal utility curve slopes downward. Marginal utility curve shows 0 and negative levels of marginal utility, whereas total utility curve shows maximum and constant total utility level. First, total utility and marginal utility of the very first unit of X consumed are the same. Second, as the consumer consumes further unit of X, the total utility increases at a diminishing rate and the marginal utility goes on diminishing. Third, at a particular stage, total utility reaches to its maximum and remains constant, whereas marginal utility becomes 0. This is called the point of satiety. Fourth, after this point, any additional unit consumed further results in a decline in the total utility, while marginal utility becomes negative. Fifth, after reaching the point of satiety, a rational consumer should stop his consumption since the maximum limit of satisfaction is reached and there is no addition to total utility by any further increase in the stock of a commodity. Sixth, consumption beyond the point of satiety transforms satisfaction into dissatisfaction. In other words, a consumer starts experiencing ill effects of consumption. Law of diminishing marginal utility. Introduction. This law was first proposed by Professor Gaussen, but was discussed in detail by Professor Alfred Marshall in his book Principles of Economics, published in 1890. The law of diminishing marginal utility is universal in character. It is based on the common consumer behavior that utility derived diminishes with the reduction in the intensity of a want. Statement of the law. According to Professor Alfred Marshall, other things remaining constant, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. In other words, marginal utility that any consumer derives from successive unit of a particular commodity goes on diminishing as his or her total consumption of that commodity increases. In short, the more of a thing you have, the less you want to have more of it. Assumptions. Following are the assumptions of the law of diminishing marginal utility. First, rationality. Consumer is assumed to be rational. It means that his behavior is normal and he tries to maximize his satisfaction. Second, cardinal measurement. The law assumes that utility can be cardinally or numerically measured. Hence, mathematical operations are easily possible to know and compare the utility derived from each unit of a commodity. Third, homogeneity. All units of a commodity consumed are exactly homogeneous or identical in size, shape, color, taste, etc. Fourth, continuity. All units of commodity are consumed in quick succession without any lapse of time. Fifth, reasonability. All the units of a commodity consumed are of reasonable size. They are neither too big nor too small. Sixth, constancy. All the related factors like income, taste, habits, choices, likes and dislikes of a consumer should remain constant. Marginal utility of money is also assumed to be constant. 7. Divisibility. The law assumes that the commodity consumed by the consumer is divisible so that it can be acquired in small quantities. 8. Single want. A given commodity can satisfy a single want of a person. The law assumes an experience of a single want which is completely satiable at a given point of time. Table 2.2 explains the law of diminishing marginal utility. Table 2.2. The table shows that marginal utility keeps on diminishing with increase in consumption. Further, it becomes zero and then negative. Explanation of the diagram. In the above diagram, units of commodity X are measured on x-axis and marginal utility is measured on y-axis. Various points of MU are plotted on the graph as per the given schedule. When the locus of all points is joined, MU curve is derived. MU curve slopes downward from left to right, which shows that MU goes on diminishing with every successive increase in the consumption of a commodity. When MU becomes 0, MU curve intercepts the x-axis. Further consumption of a commodity brings disutility, which is negative utility, which is shown by the shaded portion in the diagram. Exception to the law of diminishing units of a commodity consumed. Second, marginal utility. Marginal utility refers to the additional utility derived by a consumer from an additional unit of a commodity consumed. In other words, it is the additional made by the last unit of a commodity consumed.